So we're here with the group that organizes Educating for Justice Through Peace. And today we are talking about forgiveness, the practice of forgiveness. The quote, I'm going to see if I can find it. I may have deleted it, but I don't have it sitting on my file here, but the quote that I thought was very apt for today came from Martin Luther King Jr., who talked about the importance of forgiveness as a way of healing, but also as a way of growing towards peace and love. So with that, I'm going to ask Salima if she'd like to go first.
Thank you, Reva. When I think about forgiveness, I think, and that quote actually comes to mind, what you said about when we forgive others and ourselves, we are left with peace of mind, and even physically feeling a sense of calm and peace, to be honest, when we forgive. And I think when we forgive and expect nothing in return, we're really giving ourselves that opportunity to heal and to move on without feeling negative or angry or grudgeful. We actually are giving ourselves that gift when we forgive. Thank you.
Thanks, Salima. Shauna, would you like to go next?
Sure. That was beautiful, Salima. When I think about forgiveness, I also think about the people who are closest to us and how that can be sometimes the challenging, in families or if we've experienced histories of traumas. And I think about self-soothing through movement, through breath, and finding ways to calm myself before responding to something, because often it's not the thing itself, but it's our own responses that tend to escalate something. So I think forgiveness is essential to peace.
It's lovely. Thanks, Shauna. Annie, would you like to go next?
I'm going to offer a bit of a counter point to a lot of kind of what we normally think of forgiveness. It reminds me of a discussion that I had in one of the courses that I took the last few years, and we talked a lot about kind of forgiveness tends to become a burden for people who have been oppressed, and that's not often fair, and that forgiveness for people who have experienced oppress sometimes is pitched as the obstacle to any kind of resolution and peace, which is also not fair. So I think forgiveness is perhaps a bit more nuanced than just kind of an all-around great virtue. That's something we should push ourselves for, regardless of what it is. Just a little thing to think about.
An important point. Thank you, Annie. Joe, would you like to go next? Joe, you need to unmute.
It is an unmuted activity and it's a peaceful activity. And I think of the youth we work with and the situation that they're in. And sometimes there's no understanding, but it's just that's the way it is. But when there is understanding of, oh, that's how it happened, that is partially responsible for that. Then there's anger. And then you can get buried in that anger, and it's pretty difficult to move forward. But after the anger needs to come some kind of forgiveness, not necessarily forgetting, but forgiveness, and then moving forward in a peaceful way, and for genuine growth as well, for all of us.
Thanks so much, Joe. Arif, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thank you, Reva. Uh, for me, forgiveness, as I was just contemplating what I was listening to and what I believe, my eyes went to something that's sitting here in my office. And I thought, well, why are my eyes drawn to that word right now? And I and then it just kind of clicked in the sense that I think for one to participate in the act of forgiveness, there has to be a sense of gratitude of what they currently have. And I think those that struggle with forgiveness sometimes may struggle with the ability to see what they have that is beneficial, that is something that they can use to propel themselves even out of a disadvantaged state. And so I think that this is something that I'm going to see if I can explore a little further.
Thank you so much, Sharif. Jill, would you like to go next?
Thank you, Reva. I had a meeting this morning with a man from St. Lucia. His name was Gabriel, and he came in 2012 to India as a migrant worker. And he worked for 4 years and then left that to become an activist with other migrant workers in Canada. And he reminded me that we've been exploiting migrant workers for since 1966. There's been a law which has been highly exploitative, and how as Canadians, we often see ourselves as being very forgiving of things we've done that have not been equitable or fair. But I think in this case, I really feel I've I asked him for forgiveness, because I think we tend to forget in our moments about how much exploitation we as individuals cause others. So it's a moment of reflection for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. Daniel, would you like to go next?
Sure. The first thing that comes to mind, just looking at, because I think one of the things that's always important is that, well, we're in cultures, and cultures also extend through history, and part of the way that we transfer meaning is through words, and those words have histories. And so when I say forgive, in English, right, in English, because this is where we really have to see how language is formed in certain concepts, and how we see, for instance, forgiveness, forgive, to give. And so I think one of the things that really is, and I think, when violence happens, that's where we start to lose faith in people, because we start to have a division between, because we're no longer able to see that we're unified. So it's like a cut. And so we've taken away that give, right? And that pain is there. And then also that means we can't be together and work together, and to be able to really bring everything that we are together. And so we take away that give. And part of that, we also take away that love, and seeing that light and who they are. And so when we forgive, we give, and what we give is the love. And part of the thing too is that we stop seeing each other as, I think that one of the important things is always seeing and in love, right? And like we're the parable of Jesus, where like if someone hits you, turn the other cheek, because you see them past, the violence is not them. It is never them. It's never anyone. The violence is never that. And so we have to, it's hard sometimes to separate the object from violence is an idea. And that's where, if we see that the light behind is shining, and a lot of times it's where it's not, it's sometimes it's just we're afraid that this is going to happen. We maybe project to see that this is going to happen, so we defend ourselves and hurt the other person because we think that's going to happen. And so that what it is that we all are doing that because we're especially all the pain and suffering that's happened, we're still not healed from that. And so to heal from that, we have to be able to take off our armor and be afraid of, and take away the fear, because we also see, well, fear, because if we're both afraid, we can't open up, then we can't forgive. And so, yes, there is a moment where someone can stab at the chest. But when we're all thinking the same thing of we're going to stab each other, we continue to hurt. And so forgiving is seeing the light in anyone and knowing that whatever happens, that's not, that you see the true them and open.
Thank you, Daniel. Anish.
Hi. When I think of forgiveness, I'm hoping I would take first the opportunity to soothe myself, as the need of the hour maybe. And then, like Daniel was mentioning, see my similarity with them, how I and they are a bundle of good and evil, probably in various different mixes, but still mix of good and evil. And hopefully I can then see the shared humanity, and it will help me hold some love in my heart while still doing what may be required by the situation. Yeah.
Thanks, Anish. Ria.
I, I think forgiveness is a very difficult task. I find it difficult. There are two kinds of forgiveness that I see. One, forgiving myself, and the other, forgiving another person. And the first one is a lot more difficult for me personally. But in both the cases, something that I do is try to communicate with either with myself or with the other person or with another person or in my diary. But try to communicate. But key in that communication is that intention to forgive. Which is, if there's no intention to forgive, we will not have the strength to even have that communication. And that communication is just in the air. That intention grounds. At the same time, during that process of communication and trying to figure it out and deal with it, it's important to accept that we're all flawed, living in a flawed world. So that acceptance is also important. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ria. Falgun.
Yeah, hi. So I think a couple of points that I picked up, I just want to add them to what I think is. One is that, yeah, we are all flawed. So that's a great point. And I sometimes think about it myself. If there are mistakes I have made, and other people may make the same mistakes, and it's okay. It happens. Everything is not intentional. I think the tough part is when we know someone intentionally did something that was wrong, and then it becomes really difficult to forgive. And a good, sometimes punishment leads to forgiveness. So if the person is punished for what they do in some way, especially when the act is done by someone or a system that you have no control over. So if there's a boss and the employee does something wrong, it's easier to forgive than if you are the employee and the boss does something wrong, because you are powerless. So power and powerlessness also would play a big role in forgiving, and a just system would make forgiving easier.
Very important. Thank you so much, everybody. And thank you for contributing to this set of reflections on forgiveness.